Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today, I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than Lori Joyce. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
I'm going to say wow, only because we haven't had the camera rolling or the audio rolling, but it has been probably the most unique start to any podcast to date. We've had ice cream, we've had espresso, we have had affogato, we have had conversations about business. We've had conversations about homeschooling and everything in between.
Power washers.
If you guys are listening on iTunes, I implore you to go over to YouTube and check out where we are at. We are in Gastown right now at one of my show sponsors, Strike Movement, in their shop in Gastown. They've been nice enough to host Lori and I this morning. And it's been an interesting start.
Well, it's idyllic. They have an espresso machine here.
Exactly. Now, the first question I generally lead off this podcast with is the how, the what, the where, the why, the when, my guests, and food. So take us back as far as you can and tell us how you feel you came to be where you're at today, your alignment with food, your alignment with ice cream even, and where you're at today with your brand and your business.
Ooh, good question. You're really... How much time do I have to answer this? Okay. No, I'm all serious. I literally have had enough espresso to answer this question. I probably am going to start with becoming a mother.
Okay.
And I had a career before that with Cupcakes, which is a bakery chain here locally. But when I became a mother, and I had two kids very close in age, I spent a lot of time back at the farm that I grew up in with my parents. And, you know, when you were growing up and you were doing things a certain way, or your parents were doing things a certain way, and you didn't really get it or you didn't really appreciate it, it was then that I really appreciated the upbringing that my parents had given me. And I didn't realize how special it was until I became a mother. And that completely started Betterwith. So I'll take it back to being born. I grew up in Victoria on an organic farm. My parents were both Croatian immigrants. And being farmers and really understanding organic farming well before it was a thing. I mean, this is in the early 70s. My parents literally, I had my own cow, right? My milk source as a newborn was unpasteurized milk from my very own cow. And I didn't even realize how important that was until, of course, I became a mother. But when I became a mother and I started spending more time on the farm, I really paid attention to, and I appreciated more what I was feeding my two babies and where that food was going to come from, what the food was made of, and where I could buy it. So for the first time, honestly, I began reading food labels. And that's actually when I discovered, because I started Cupcakes, right? I love dessert. I love all things sugar and dessert-like, which includes ice cream. But that's when I discovered that there was actually a difference between and what was frozen dessert and ice cream, and why was I eating this when it's not actually ice cream and I thought it was. I found that very interesting. And I was, as a consumer, horribly disappointed. And growing up in a farm where literally, even today, right? I know exactly what we're going to eat, and it's not only seasonal, it's picked from the garden. There were no aluminum cans in my mom's kitchen.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's how self-sustaining the farm was, and how my parents live. Now, of course, I'm a career person, so I can't do that. But being back in that environment, in that space, really gave me the perspective. So for me, with Betterwith, it was like, why isn't there a local super premium ice cream that is clean label, that has cream instead of fortified milk ingredients? And why, it just scared me. And there was all these chemicals and gums. And so I started doing the research, and there's this in Couch and Bay this fabulous ice cream parlor called Utter Guys, and they made their ice cream. And when I say made from scratch, I mean they pour the milk in, they put the egg yolks in, like they're making, that to me is from scratch, not pouring in a mix and then adding some syrup, which is flavor ingredients. And I was very impressed with their product. They were using really picked themselves blueberries from their backyard kind of thing. And so I asked them, and I was like, how do you do this? Why are you doing this? What does this do? What does this taste like? And so as I just became more educated about ice cream, I felt that there was an opportunity to make a product in grocery that was unlike any other. Haagen-Dazs does a phenomenal job, but you know what? They've owned that space for a long time. They're not local. And I felt that there could be something better, not only local, but a product that stood for something, traceable dairy. So going back to having my own cow and growing up on a farm, understanding the farm environment, understanding the environment that the cows are in and how they're treated was critical for me. And if I could not secure this, I wouldn't have ended up launching the company. At the time, I was very naive. I didn't understand how political the milk system was in this country. So that alone delayed me at least 2 years. But at the end of the day, and sitting here today, I was able to achieve launching Betterwith in the marketplace, first to market with traceable dairy, simply meaning, of course, you can trace all my milk back to one farm, and clean label. So there's absolutely no gums at all, no stabilizers, no fillers. The only emulsifier is egg yolk. I literally single source all my ingredients. I know where all of my ingredients originate from. And that was critical for me, and I felt that would be a game changer. And it's been really exciting and creating this brand that actually deserves to be on that shelf space beside someone like Haagen-Dazs.
And how has it been for you? Meaning fun, stressful, crazy, anxious. Can you sum it up in a few words since you've launched Betterwith?
You just said it. Those are the words. I couldn't have chosen 4 or 5 better words than you did. Except for naive.
Okay.
I was told I couldn't do this.
I love that.
And look at the space. Go into a grocery store. Go into any grocery store and look who's in frozen ice cream in that category. Or let's just broaden that and say frozen dessert. It's generally occupied by not national, but global food brands. Unilever, Haagen-Dazs, Nestle, Breyers. I can go on and on and on. And so the few people that were in the industry that I met with in the beginning, all of them said, I won't touch frozen. You can't do this. They're going to literally hang you upside down and bleed you dry, which is literally what's happening to me right now. I did Dragon's Den,
okay.
Right? I wasn't featured on Dragon's Den, but I did it. And all of the dragons literally were like, I won't touch frozen with a 10-foot pole.
Wow.
And I know, sitting here, so that was about a year and a half ago, sitting here, I know exactly why. And I'm young, I'm patient, and I'm playing the long game.
Good for you. I actually love it when people say, don't do it, or you can't do it. That for me is even more motivating and even more reason for me to not prove myself, but for me to prove to myself that I want this bad enough and I'm going to see it through. And if I trip and fall, guess what? It's going to be because I tried as hard as I possibly could. And sure, the odds may be stacked up against you, but every single one of those people that are populating that space now started off somewhere like where you're starting off, right? And they had the quote unquote audacity to think they could play in that market. Now, I'm sensitive to the fact that it's a lot different now than it was 25, 30 years ago, but I still think that the core of that still exists today. You need to have that a bit of naivety, you need to have a bit of that delusion, and that to me is what's going to allow you to keep pushing forward. Does that resonate with you all? Do you feel like you need to be that way?
100%. There's always going to be those game changers and the ones that are going to disrupt a category.
Yes.
And I like to take that title and say that that's me, mm-hmm. and I'm resilient, mm-hmm. right? I know that about myself. I trust my intuition, and I know my loyalty, and I know I'm focused.
Right.
So that's understanding what you're capable of and your competencies is critical, especially when you're playing in a game with the big guys. Mm-hmm. this is David and Goliath,
Yeah.
right? Like, and it's pretty clear which one I am, right? There's no
misconstruing that.
No, not at all. But what they don't realize is I think the people that are always in this position, they have the same qualities and they don't care. They believe so much in themselves and they have this vision that they will literally do whatever it takes to do it. And it's those people that, here's a perfect example, which is very topical, Chip Wilson.
Right.
He just launched his book a week ago. And it's those people 19, 20 years later that are on their book tours that are talking about the early days that keep me going.
Right.
That's what I rely on today. The success stories of what it took for those people. I mean, another great one is the CEO of FedEx. He literally had to go and I don't know, was it 1976 or something? Do you know the story? He went to Las Vegas and played a hand of poker until he made enough money to pay his payroll.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what he did.
Crazy.
And so it's stories like that really resonate with the entrepreneur that's in the startup mode, because it's like, you know what, we hear the hype, we hear the good news, we hear the success stories. And but they had to get through this. And I feel that getting through this is critical. And it's the balance of when you're going to pass that tipping point.
Right. It's interesting when you say getting through this. And I've heard that a lot lately in the adventure that I'm on myself and launching my own business as a restaurant consultant, and obviously with this podcast as well. I had a friend say to me, instead of going through stuff, think of it as growing through stuff. Think of all the stuff that you're learning. And he said, one day you're going to look back at this hard time and this will be the good old days.
Oh, 100%. Actually, that's funny because I really credit that I've been here before with cupcakes.
Yeah, exactly. You know this.
Yeah.
You may not know this, sorry to interrupt, you may not know this, like this environment specific, being frozen, being ice cream, but you've gone through this fire before. And I think that should give you confidence as well. It's like your cookie jar. You can go into that cookie jar and be like, Lori, come on.
Yeah.
You got this.
Well, it gives me that that's where the confidence comes from, right? And it also prepared me for this. And there were many days, oh wow, and especially in Vancouver with this weather and the rain and being in retail and being in food. I mean, there were many days in like 2002 to 2004 where it was like, no one wants cupcakes today. Atkins diet's a big thing right now. Who's going to eat a cupcake? And so it was very reactionary. It was very impulsive and it was very reactionary. And today the biggest difference, which I can only credit to experience, is that I am no longer reactionary.
Right.
Everything that I work on, everything that I'm planning on is at least, don't laugh. This is my analogy.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm an Olympic athlete training for the next Olympics.
I like that.
That's how I get through this.
It's funny you say that. There's an Olympic rowing team years ago, and I forget what the story comes from. I want to say they were Dutch or something. And when they started training for the Olympics as a team, it was like again, I'm going to butcher this, like a 4-man team or a 6-man team, whatever it might be. But when they started training, they all agreed that their question they would ask themselves every day with everything they did was, will this help me win a gold? So every day they would wake up and they would have their day ahead of them and they would have choices to make, whether they're to go into a movie with a friend or having a beer or whatever it may be. And the question they would ask themselves before they did it was, will this help me win a gold? And I think that's such an amazing, strong mindset. If you can stay on that path as an entrepreneur, viewing yourself as an Olympic athlete, will this help grow my brand? Is this the right action to do? Is this the right thing to do?
That's what I ask myself every day. That's my talk to myself. And it helps a lot because I was an athlete growing up.
Oh, cool.
I did junior nationals in gymnastics.
Oh, wow.
Then I, obviously, if you look at me, I'm not petite and, a tiny little girl. By no means does that mean I'm the opposite, but
right.
I did not have that gymnast body when I hit puberty. And then I became a diver. Bye guys. Nice meeting you.
Those are our friends who are leaving.
My new Betterwith fans.
Yeah, they're going to order a pallet later today. It's fantastic.
They're going to clear out inventory. There'll be no strawberry in the market tomorrow.
Can we quickly just talk about the brand? So Betterwith, for those of you guys that haven't clued in yet, is an ice cream that Lori is making. Her and her team are providing to us, the consumers, here in Vancouver, in BC,
Western Canada, actually.
Western Canada. Amazing. Thank you so much. Let's talk about quickly something you spoke about just a short while ago about the locality of the product. Now, when I look at this packaging, it doesn't speak and scream local to me, which I kind of appreciate, because I feel like for so long now that's been shoved down our throats and it's kind of a bit tired. Whereas I feel like, and feel free to interject here, I feel like with your product, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than just local. It's like what you said, it's about the traceable dairy. It's about what you're using to emulsify, all those things. It's about the what's in it, and not just flying the flag of it's local. That's kind of like secondary. The product itself and the ingredients comes first, and the fact that it is all local is like an extra win.
Well, I built this brand and the brand identity and this ice cream company to be the best ice cream company in the world. So for me, it was about scaling.
Right.
That was probably my number one frustration with cupcakes, is that I couldn't scale it fast enough. And I replicated the ice cream model. I mean, when I got into the business, it was like, how can I scale? What does Haagen-Dazs do? They're a global company. What does Unilever do? You know, Ben and Jerry's. And they outsource. So right away, that means that I'm going to choose a local partner who's going to produce my ice cream. Now, from cupcakes, I learned, most importantly, what my strengths and weaknesses are, right? That's really important when you're going to go into business for yourself, is really understanding how you're going to contribute and what that's going to be. So I'm a marketer. Mm-hmm. I mean, to this day, I haven't made a cupcake, right? I was not going to open up a bakery to bake cupcakes. And so same with ice cream. I wasn't going to start an ice cream company because I was going to make ice cream. It's always been, I'm a macro thinker, right? It's always, the vision's always been much bigger than that. So locally in this market, the Avalon Dairy, which is a milk processor, they're my co-packer, which is a really great partnership that's working really well. So what that means is that I provide them with a recipe. They have to follow that and produce it based on demand and capacity. But in this, for me to achieve that and to achieve the respect in the industry, they have to follow the guidelines of the traceable dairy. And I didn't understand. I had no idea about how, as I mentioned earlier, how political that was. Mm-hmm. And how I'd be able to grow with that. And what that means is that in different markets, based on capacity, I would choose and partner with a local farmer in that region. And so I'm recognizing and appreciating bringing the farmer to the table, right. You know? And in this market, the farmer has an incentive to sell me all of his supply because I pay a premium for his supply. Right. It's a really quality product. In the world, in the scary big world of business, you know, I believe in being fair. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'm not making a product right now that is going to have a really healthy bottom line. That's not what it's about. It's about creating a brand that's going to grow in top line, mm-hmm. but it stands for something, right? And I'm not cutting corners. And I feel that with having scaling, I can grow that top line and eventually the bottom line will get healthy. So I choose and I work closely with food scientists for flavoring ingredients. So when the local is accessible mm-hmm. and it's the best quality, absolutely. So my strawberries, for example, because we live in a region that grows strawberries. Of course, I'm going to choose strawberries. Excuse me. But we don't grow chocolate here. Right. We don't process chocolate here. So my chocolate, for example, is a fair trade chocolate from Colombia. It's a third generation family that not only grows the pods, they also process the chocolate. So I'm hand-picking in this very intimate global food market processors that align with the values of Betterwith. Right. That to me is more important in the big picture than narrowing it down, because when you narrow it down, that's going to limit it. And of course, that works for people that want to stay boutique and they want to stay small. That's great, and they can own that and they can run with that. Right. But for me, with Betterwith, the goal and the vision was always much bigger than that. Bigger. So you mentioned scalable a few times, and you used the word bigger. So where do we see Betterwith ideally
5 years from now, 10 years from now, 12 years from now? What does it look like?
I don't know how long it's going to take, so I don't put that pressure on me. I focus on what I can control and what I can do in the time and in the market that I'm in. So my first requirement is to be the premium ice cream brand in the province. That's my goal right now. I don't care how long that's going to take. I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on me because I came into this business not knowing anything about grocery. So setting those timelines is it's just an unnecessary stress.
Right.
I do what I can, and that's my focus, and I'm keeping to that focus. From there, it'll be getting into the U.S. market and going across Canada. And then beyond that, it'll be, of course, global and duplicating the model that's similar to Haagen-Dazs, right? And so working with other farmers in different markets and growing it exponentially that way. The end goal, if you want to know whenever that's going to happen, would be well beyond ice cream. Okay. So right now, the focus and all of the effort is about producing the biggest super premium, the most indulgent ice cream brand ever. But one of the advantages of kind of having these very strong values and creating this brand identity is diversifying that.
Right.
So probably something I haven't mentioned yet, which is really important to me, which goes way back into the, my normal of growing up on that farm, is really eating clean.
Okay.
So this ice cream, if you read the ingredient label, and of course, like today when I'm demoing, people are going to be like, can I read the ingredient label? And I'm like, it's my proudest moment. I'm like, absolutely, I'll read it for you because it's in my head, right? Like my 6-year-old can pronounce every word.
And it's very short as well, so it wouldn't take you that long. Do you mind if I read it quickly?
Of course.
So made with farm fresh traceable cream. And then the ingredients are cream, organic sugar, sugared egg yolk, and then in parentheses or brackets is egg yolk sugar, then skim milk powder. This is a strawberry, which is amazing. We'll talk about that in a minute. Strawberries, citric acid, natural strawberry flavor, and elderberry juice for color. May contain obviously peanuts and nuts. Like that to me, as someone who likes to look at labels and read and see what's in it, like that to me is inspiring because this has been a thing for a while now for me. If I can't pronounce it, I'm putting it back on the shelf. Do you know what I mean? So this to me automatically as a consumer speaks to me. Are you conscious of that fragility of people? Meaning if there's something on there that doesn't kind of pique their interest or puts them off, they're putting your brand back down. So did you have, was there a day when Betterwith had something else on there and you principally were like, that can't be in there, I can't have that? Or has it always been, this is what it is, and it just is what it is? Or was there a time where you were faced with the decision to maybe you do this and add this for a little better, consistency, but you knew in your heart of hearts it had to be as simple and as raw as it could be?
You can make ice cream at home.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyone can make ice cream at home.
Right.
And when you make ice cream at home, you make it with real whole ingredients.
Right.
And then you freeze it. So for me, I was like, why can't I do that and produce a grocery brand?
So cool.
So I'm not a food scientist. I'm not even a nutritionist, but I'm a consumer and I love ice cream.
Right.
I grew up on a farm where from the moment I was born, it was instilled in me how important it was to eat seasonal, clean, whole food.
Right.
And the entire reason why I did this is because, vibration,
So good, yeah.
is because that was not available in the marketplace. I know why it wasn't. And so for me, I wanted to challenge that and prove that it could be done. And I think that it's definitely trending right now. It's ironic because my parents have been doing this my whole life, right? And I'm 44.
Right.
Literally 45 in a couple months. And it's only now that really people are beginning, and it's an incredibly small percentage where people are beginning to pay more attention to what they're eating. And when I say a small percentage, I mean, I don't have the stats, but I would say if we're talking about mass market, like 10%. 10% of the consumer roughly is reading labels. It's growing. I mean, the stat that I can share is that last year in the US, in 1 year, the growth was 40%. The consumer was beginning to read ingredient labels.
Wow.
40% last year. That's incredible. So right now, the consumer is not only losing faith and trusting less these big conglomerate companies, they're also being their own advocate. And they're beginning to do their own research, and they're beginning to read more and pay attention. But we still have a very, very far way to go. But for me, I would not have created this company because, as I was saying, I want to grow it and diversify with clean label and traceable wherever it can be. But there's no compromising.
Cool.
You know, you can't, if you have values that really mean something to you, that's in you.
Right.
Right. And when I talk to people, I'm like, that's me in an ice cream package.
Yeah, I heard you say that earlier. I thought that was so poignant and really cool to hear. And I agree. And I'm really proud.
We need to put that in the freezer because it's or the most incredible thing is that if we just let it sit there, it'll be the best strawberry milkshake you've ever had.
I believe it. I'm going to put it in the freezer. I'm going to yell across the room here and be really rude. Jeff, would you mind? Jeff is our new show producer.
I'm just watching it, but seriously, like that's the unique
Thanks,
when you make something with real stuff.
Yeah.
It'll just melt and be a killer milkshake.
Can we go back quickly to what you were just talking about in regards to people being more conscious and being their own advocates? And I think at a time it was almost a nuisance. I'm looking at the restaurant industry, for example, people going in and saying, where is this chicken from? Or where is this beef from? Or where are your vegetables from? I think it was a nuisance before for the owner, operator, chef, waiter, waitress. Whereas now I think they recognize that that is like the bare minimum that the consumer is demanding. So do you feel like it is only going to get to a point where there needs to be even more transparency? And I'm talking food across in all spectrums, whether it is packaged frozen goods, whether it is a plate at a restaurant, anything in a grocery store. Do you feel like that is where we are going? And does that change the accessibility of the food? Meaning, is a product like yours, is a local piece of beef, is that accessible to everyone? And should it be?
So to answer your first comment, the consumer always is going to be the person that's going to change what happens and what's sold and what's created.
Yeah.
And they are always ahead. So perhaps it was a nuisance, but in most of those restaurants, when you go in there today, the chef finally figured out, I just got to write this on the damn menu.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So now you go into those restaurants and it will say where that chicken came from or exactly what farm it, whether it's local, and they'll that's a selling feature, and it is, and the consumer wants that, and that adds value, which they can hopefully justify paying more for. It costs more money for that. My opinion on can everyone afford it? That's I would absolutely, unfortunately, say no. You know, and that's why there's so much change in what's happening. There's like an entire food revolution, right? And especially like with what's happening with the gross in vegan marketplace, which is phenomenal and very exciting and necessary. You know, like, I mean, I might be making a dairy ice cream, but I'm making it because it's an ethical dairy product.
Right.
You know, like I can go to that farm anytime. Firstly, more importantly, I know the farm. I know the farmer. I know the cows. I know the environment. I can go there anytime. I can see that environment. Those cows are curious cows. They're walking around. That says so much to me about how comfortable those cows are and how well they're taken care of. But going forward, it's ironic that we're talking about this because it's about priorities. And I'm going to sum it up into that. The consumer does not I'm going to make some pretty harsh comments here.
That's all right.
But I have some pretty strong opinions.
Good, as do I.
The consumer does not prioritize, very few consumers prioritize the choice that they're making to what kind of food they should be buying.
Right.
I think that, you know, and you hear this all the time, people make the comment of like whole paycheck or, you know, it costs so much money to feed my family. And it's like, yeah, but all your kids have like the latest Apple gadgets
Right.
and you have this beautiful wine cabinet and you have season tickets to the hockey game. I'm like, okay, let's hone in here. I
Right.
grew up where the priority was what we ate,
Right.
right? Like literally very traditional, but in my household, we have 3 meals a day. We eat them together and we know where all that food came from. That costs money, but we would rather spend money on that. Because what I can tell you right now is I'm not going to every hockey game. I haven't been to a rock concert in a long time.
Right.
And that's my choice and that's my priority. I would rather feed my family and my kids better food choice and better products and hunt for that food, right? So we're foraging right now. We're hunting because we know that like wild game, how healthy it is for you. So I know that I'm very healthy and I have this powerful immunity because of the food that I was raised on.
Right.
That's really important to me. The consumer that is saying and commenting like, oh my God, organic food is so expensive. And what frustrates me is that now everyone's doing organic,
Right.
right? Like all of a sudden organic's really popular in Walmart. And I'm like, that's not organic. Do you want me to tell you what organic is?
Exactly.
Like I go to my parents' farm, I pick strawberries, I put them on the counter. I put those up against strawberries that I bought in an organic supermarket,
Yeah.
and I do the same test. My parents' strawberries mold by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Those organic strawberries that came from not this country at all, they don't mold for 3 days. Like, I mean, really? Is that? I mean, it's obviously organic sprayed, but still, it's like it's sprayed. So I have a real strong opinion about that. And so to get organic food isn't necessarily better, which is why my ice cream isn't organic. You know, if it was organic milk, it would just cost way too much money and the consumer wouldn't be buying it. What's more important is having that relationship and understanding. But, you know, it's prioritizing. So you can go to a market, you can go to support your local farmers, you can buy whole ingredients. You know, you can go into my car right now and there's 3 apples in there. Those are from my farm. Those are gonna get me through to dinner. You know, awesome. And that's saving me money because I got a busy day today, right?
Yeah.
But my point is that I'm choosing to eat whole.
Yeah.
And healthy, and I'm not going to spend the money that I do have on this season's fashion accessory or stuff like that. So I find that conversation very funny because it's like, and I truly have narrowed it down. It comes down to priorities and where do people think it's more important to spend money. And my parents are older. They're in their early 70s, late 60s. If you look at them, you'd think that they were 20 years younger.
Yeah.
That's completely because of their eating and their lifestyle. And I sit there and go, well, if that's not a representation of something, their friends are getting sick, they're getting diagnosed with cancer. And the first thing that the doctor is saying to them is, you need to change your diet. You know, so people forever take their bodies for granted until that conversation comes up. And then when that conversation comes up, they need to change really fast. And you know what they're doing? They're going to my parents' house.
Exactly. Saying, what are you eating?
They're saying, can you help me? And this is literally happening. This is happening right now. And it's happened more than once. And my parents are like introducing them to how they eat. These friends have gone back to the doctor 6 months later and they're like, you're doing better than before your diagnosis. What did you change? Yeah. And trust me, there's no prescription, there's no medication, there's no kind of drug endorsing here. There's none of that. It's like it's eating whole, seasonal, and fresh. And today we're very lucky. We are surrounded by these local farming communities, these farm markets that have now become urban. We can go there and, you know, and prioritize and support those people and make better food choices.
Yeah, we're extremely blessed right now, but to your point, it is all about choices. It's about what are you prioritizing, what is important to you and your family. And one thing you just brought up that really speaks to me and reminded me of a saying I heard a few weeks ago. And this, you were just speaking to your parents' friends, unfortunately coming down with some sort of illness. And it reminded me of this saying. And the saying is feather, brick, truck. Stay with me here. Life will give you feathers, bricks, and trucks. Meaning, life will give you a little tickle with a feather to see if you're paying attention. Maybe it's you stub your toe. Then they'll give you a brick, and then they'll hit you with a truck. And it's at that point where you wake up and you're like, okay, I need to do this. I need to start a company. I need to get healthy. I need to get out of my relationship or get into a better relationship. And it's interesting how life shows up for us in different aspects and different parts of our life. And a lot of times it's feathers, bricks, and trucks. And unfortunately for a lot of us, it takes getting to the truck, which sometimes can be too late in life, to prioritize those things like food. Do you feel like in your business, you had a feather brick truck moment where you're like, hey, I got to do this. I just have to go all in on Betterwith and have it go? Or was it easier than that for you in regards to getting the motivation, the action to just do it?
You know, I'm going to steal the feather brick truck.
I love
that.
Yeah.
And it's completely what I was just talking about. I totally visualize that. Well, no, because I'm not reactionary anymore.
Right.
So that didn't hit me like that. What hit me more was observing, watching my babies. They were babies at the time, crawling around in bare feet on the farm, literally crawling up to our because we have chickens and ducks, and literally them in that environment. And I have, you know what, this is the moment. And maybe this was the truck.
Okay.
This kind of just made me
just
think
hit
of this.
you?
Yeah. So my oldest son at the time, I don't know, he probably was around 2. Let's say he was around 2. So I am a mother of 2 boys that are today 6 and 8. And at the time, as when they were babies, like I've never bought hand sanitizer.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm very pro germs.
Yeah.
Right. I think germs are essential. I think we need to expose our kids to germs. I mean, because I went back and forth on the ferry all the time, every single ferry ride, it was like the family was going to be out for 3 days. Right. For sure. I mean, it's a cesspool.
Yeah. It's like a petri dish.
Completely. And it was very challenging times when our babies were younger. Today, they don't get sick at all. But at the time, my oldest got very sick. Again, I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist. So as a mother, I was just coping and trying to figure out what was wrong with him. And this is a vivid moment in my life. So he had high temperature for probably a week. And this is going to be pretty visual right now, but he was literally shooting out fluorescent green diarrhea.
Wow.
Okay. You have a baby girl.
Yep.
So this is important for you to hear this. You're going to have days like that. You're going to be in the bathtub in the middle of the night in a cold ice bath because you're trying to regulate their temperature.
Yeah.
Right? And you're not going to go to emergency. You're just going to try to deal with it yourself. Anyways, it lingered on for a little bit too long. And my mom did not like the idea of all these antibiotics. You know, doctors here, it's like, oh, and just get this antibiotic, whatever it is. And it really wasn't regulating the temperature, and the diarrhea was going on. And it was like, obviously over 3 to 4 days. And what my mom did probably changed my life, but ultimately it made my son healthier immediately. So my parents are both farmers, they're foragers, they literally are self-sufficient with the food that they eat. My mom did not like what was happening from the communication that I was telling her on the phone. So she went hunting. This is my mom. Okay. She caught a grouse, like wild game, made homemade grouse soup, and came to Vancouver, like I'm talking, on the city bus.
Wow. RAV
line on the city bus, comes into my house with homemade grouse soup. In order to keep him hydrated, we were giving Maxie bottles of water and whatever to keep him hydrated, because he was losing weight, and it was really stressful. She heated up the bottle, put the grouse broth in a baby bottle. I mean, what baby is going to have grouse soup, right? He chugged it. I was holding him. Yeah. He chugged it. And my mom went to take it away because she had to refill it. Yeah. And he would not let her take it away. Wow. So here's a very unhealthy, and my kids are very strong, but at the time, very weak baby who knew immediately that this was making him feel better. He's not old enough to talk, but he was fighting with every ounce of energy that he had with my mother to not let her take away this bottle, even though there was nothing in it. So he started crying, and then my mom refilled it, and she gave it to him. After he finished the second bottle, no more diarrhea.
Wow.
His body temperature probably by the afternoon was to normal, and he was 100% recovery.
Oh, wow. So when are you and your mom getting into gross soup business?
So that really showed me the power of real food
100%.
and it being medicine.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've just kind of brought this memory back, and that's truly why Betterwith started, and that thinking kind of motivated this subconsciously. But as a mother, I will never forget how fast he recovered. Like, it was hours. And I'm talking like he was sick for almost a week. Like, it took a lot for my mom. I mean, she literally, like, she was hearing this for a while. But as a 2-year-old weak baby, to understand immediately how this liquid drink was making him feel better and that he needed it because he wouldn't let go of the bottle, that was very powerful.
Yeah.
And my mom told me, she's like, growing up in Croatia, when anyone has a stomach infection, whether it's viral or bacterial, that's what doctors there would recommend is grouse soup. That was their medicine.
Crazy.
And not, a prescription here and there. And so my mom, like, bless her, went hunting, and, we had our own. So now we have grouse soup once a week, and even like both of my kids, like, it's their favorite soup.
That's so
cool. They'll eat it up, and it's and so to me, it's like, where is it that we disconnect as a person? How important that is, that most people are just putting anything in our body to literally just survive.
Just sustain, yeah.
Like, people, look at what most people are eating, right?
Scary.
I mean, Whole Foods, which is, I'm only using it because we know what that is. But as far as like all clean, all natural eating that's not processed, that's a very small percentage that can afford that. Everyone, though, can afford an apple.
Right.
So for me, it's like, well, can everyone afford it? It's like, well, no, they can't necessarily afford to go to their local butcher and have steak for dinner, but they can afford going into the store and buying a head of lettuce, or an apple, or a carrot. Like, you don't have to make something necessarily. You can just eat raw Whole Foods if that's what you can afford. You're gonna survive off that, and you're gonna eat well.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's those tiny dominoes. It doesn't have to be a massive big step. It's those little steps that make such a big impact long term. And as you were talking about that story, which was an amazing story and very visceral for me, I could almost be there. And
So
Go ahead.
I'm your source.
Yeah, you're my source.
We're connected now.
We
so
are very
if your
connected.
beautiful little baby ever
Yes.
gets that, you know who to contact.
I'm gonna ask for your mother to fly over with her.
She will, and she
Perfect.
would do that. You can,
Perfect.
but I'm serious.
Who said let food be thy medicine?
Hippocrates.
So that's just,
And how long ago was that?
a few weekends ago.
Yeah.
It seems so simple, but for some reason, we as a society have complicated this, and we make excuses, and I myself am guilty of it at times as well. But I do really prioritize food and what I put into my body. And it's interesting. I'm reminded of another quote I heard a while ago in regards to this gentleman being challenged by his friend who said, my grandmother lived to 95 and she smoked every day. This guy that was being challenged is a vegan and does Ironmans and extremely healthy. And his rebuttal to this guy's grandmother living till 95 and she smoked every day and drank every day, whatever the situation might have been, he said, I would rather live to 70 and thrive every single day than drag my feet and crawl to 95. And I just
Yeah.
thought that was such an amazing and poignant and smart comment. If I live to 65, but I can run, jump, squat, lift, move, think, all those things, I'd much rather that than crawling my way to 95 and not being able to do those things. And I think it all comes from, like you were saying, choices with our food. It is so important. And I feel like, sure, we hear that everywhere all the time, whether it be media, social media, the news. But I think why not have another platform, another half hour or hour where we're just talking about that, because it is that important. And I think we are seeing that change. Now, changing speeds just a little bit, talking about food and talking about health. If someone was to challenge you and say, great, Lori, I appreciate your stance on all things healthy and eating apples and heads of lettuce, but then where does a brand like Betterwith fit in? Is it quote unquote healthy? Or where do you position Betterwith when someone comes in and challenges that it's not a health food? Sure, it's natural ingredients, all those other things. Where does Betterwith fit in that realm of eating healthy and treating your body well and thriving?
Well, firstly, it's just, let's just call it what it is. It's a dessert.
Right.
And you can't make ice cream without sugar.
Right.
Right? So the choice that I made is to add organic sugar, right? That's organic sugar in there, raw Brazilian organic sugar. But for me, if you're going to have dessert, and this is the principle that I learned at Cupcakes, make it the most satisfying dessert.
Right.
So when I'm in doing demos, I'm very proud to shout out, this is a high-fat ice cream.
Right.
And it scares, this is the lack of education, right? It still scares a big percentage of consumers,
Yeah.
especially the ones that need to be eating high-fat ice cream.
Yes.
You know, and I sit there and go, okay, remember that triangle that we were taught in school that was supported and financed by the government? Don't follow that anymore because it's really wrong.
Yeah, it's probably still wrong.
You know, it's ridiculous, but it's like and my mom, it's so funny because of her broken English. She's so, you know, with the translation, she's really direct. She's like, you never get fat eating real fat.
It's true.
You know, that's just how she lives. And growing up with a European family, we ate with that kind of European diet. You know, so everything was whole. I have real butter, right? We made real butter from our own cow, right? And real milk. But when you have the right unsaturated fat, and because I'm using only cream, so in the industry, in order for ice cream to be considered ice cream, it needs to have at least 10% butter fat. My ice cream has almost 19%. It's almost double.
Right.
And because I have that high of a percentage, it allows me not to have what everyone else is putting in their ice cream, the gums and the additives, because that stuff is much cheaper, right? The chemical fillers is much cheaper than 19% local traceable cream.
Yeah.
Right? And so having a high fat ice cream, a lot of people are going to be like, that's totally not healthy.
Right.
But it's like, but if you're going to eat dessert, that's the healthier choice.
Exactly. We are seeing a shift though, no? In that education, there are more people that are aware of things like avocados don't hurt you, and good olive oil and nuts and seeds and all those things, and even ice creams. It is better to choose that fuller fat version. Although I'm sure you have a great kind of sample of when you go and do these demos yourself, you can see what percentage of people are still challenged by that concept of, wait, more fat is better for me?
Well, the reason why it's better is because it's so satisfying, you eat less of it.
Correct.
Right? That's the whole point.
Right.
So we're probably the same age. We grew up eating 4-liter pails of ice cream.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what it took to get satisfied as a family.
Right.
Right? Remember eating that? I mean, unless you had Neapolitan like I did, and so you didn't have the strawberry and you just carved down to the bottom with, the chocolate and the vanilla. But my point is that when you're eating whole food, you're satisfied, and so you're eating less. And if you're just going based on nutritional analysis, in a Betterwith ice cream container, the calorie content is actually less because a lot of the calories come from the fillers, right? Which isn't in my product. Mm-hmm. So, but it just, depends on whether I scare people away when I say high fat. And I don't care if I scare people away because that's why literally says it on my packaging. I'm being honest,
right.
and I'm proud that it's high fat. Mm-hmm. I think that that's what makes it so creamy and delicious. That's what takes it to that next level. Now, where there's room in the marketplace for Betterwith and to defend the comment that you made about being healthier, when you're eating whole, you're eating clean. That's synonymous. And because you're eating clean, it means that you're not substituting additives, gums, fillers, stabilizers, all the and or may contains. That's the bad stuff. People have to start paying attention to. That's why we have that's why we're getting sicker as we keep on going, and it's that, like, I didn't realize this because, again, I keep on saying I'm not a nutritionist. I've had strangers come up to me going, there's no carrageenan in this ice cream. I'm going to hug you because I haven't had ice cream in 5 years.
Oh my God.
That's a normal gum that has, people now are developing allergic reactions to it. But it's all that stuff. That's what you are eating when you're not prioritizing and you're making poor food choices, right? So in that regard, the entire philosophy of Betterwith, as I diversify in the future, going into different food aisles, is there will be none of that stuff. So that'll be my promise. And as Betterwith evolves, people will just know, if it's Betterwith, it doesn't have that stuff in it. Right. I'll never do that because that's my value system.
Do you feel like Betterwith has the opportunity to change the standard? Like, what is the standard in your industry, in frozen, in ice cream? Could you be that? Could you be the one that sets the new standard? Like Amazon is setting a standard for customer service now, whereas like you call them up and they just solve your issue. Can Betterwith be that for ice cream? Can Betterwith be, wow, okay, we can't afford to put this stuff in. Will you guys be the ones that make that transition? Can you be that?
What's more important to me is that my standard is honesty.
Okay.
And so the consumer will trust it.
Right.
So if I say one thing, I do that thing. Right? So if I say it's going to be clean label, it's going to be clean label. I don't want to put the pressure on me that I'm going to revolutionize the food industry. That's a pretty heavy loaded question.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of incredible, especially in BC, right? There's a tremendous innovation of what's going on in food. So I'm not going to say I'm going to be the first or I'm going to lead that. I just want the consumer to know that they can trust it. That's more important to me.
I like that. That is probably a good place to wrap it up. But before I let you go, I do have 2 final questions. And you do have a demo to get to.
What time?
We're at 11:20, so we're going to do this pretty quick.
Oh, great timing.
Yeah. So on this show, it is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. So I have for you, Lori, the half a dozen have-tos. You can give me 1 to 6, so 1 to half a dozen of things you've experienced in your life. Could be food related, could be family related, could be a concert you've been to, could be a sweater you've purchased, a show whatever it is. 1 to 6 things that you have done that listeners have to do.
Oh, God, I have to answer this right away.
Yeah, you can do 1 to 6.
One word answers?
No. It can be a paragraph, a sentence, whatever. But just one thing to 6 things that you have done that our listeners have to do. Whether it's a trip you've taken, a meal you've had, a business you've launched, a pair of shoes you've purchased.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Are you drawing blanks?
I am, just because I've been. Well, I think everyone needs to start prioritizing.
Okay.
Let's start with that.
I like that.
In order for them to live a more healthy and really satisfying life, I think prioritizing can start at any time, especially today, and that will impact where the food business is going to go. At the end of the day, the consumer is the one that's making those trends, and they're forcing those trends.
Right.
So if they want to support me, they need to start supporting that value system and that philosophy.
That's a great one.
So I would say that right away, which has really changed my life, and that's why I created this company. And that's supporting your local clothing brand. I mean, it's evolved well past food.
Yeah,
right?
It's holistic. It's everything. It really is.
It's a total lifestyle. I think everybody should spend far more time getting outside. We live in the most, so now I've recently moved back home and I live on this organic farm. And I spend, because it's harvest season right now, most of my mornings, because it's this time of year, picking chestnuts.
Oh, gorgeous.
And you know what? I'm helping my parents and it's work. But I can tell you right now that an hour of picking chestnuts or being outside, doing that very mundane, routine job is the equivalent of therapy. It's literally my whether it's you call it yoga or meditation. So I think everyone needs to spend more time and devote more time, especially if you're living in BC. Just get outside. I think that's so healthy, and it's also just an extension of part of that value system. I think that there's so much. I'm one of those people, despite the fact that I'm in business and I like to know what's going on. I spend less time today following what's happening in our world, reading the news, listening to the news, following the news. I don't trust it at all. And I think it's like, I don't understand the motive. I think it's freaking people out. And it's people are reacting to something that could possibly never happen. I think we need to spend more time really figuring out who our friends are and who we can trust, and spending more time together with each other.
Community.
But community, because that word is so overused.
True.
I don't like using it. That's why I didn't use it.
Okay.
Being authentic.
Right.
Like really, I have one circle. I don't have circles. I have one circle.
I like that.
And that circle applies to whether I do business with you or we have a personal relationship. You either are in the circle because we have the same value system, or you're out of the circle. Doesn't mean you're irrelevant.
Right.
It just means that you're not my everything.
You're prioritizing.
Yeah. And I'm not going to go out of my way for you. I might make time for you, but I have to make time for these people first.
Right. I like that. Yeah, I consider that to be like my power circle, I call them. And it's a small group of people, but I'm very blessed to have them in my life.
It's so important. And it's those people's opinions that I follow and that I listen to. Right. And they impact me and vice versa. And from there, we grow. But whatever's happening, and I mean, there's so much talk today about what's happening in like U.S. politics in the world. And I'm like, but does it affect you today?
Exactly.
Is it really, you're letting it make a difference for yourself. Like turn that stuff off.
Totally.
It's just the hype it's just gross. Right. So I think people really need to be more present in what's in front of them. I think that's really important. I mean, I experience this every day. I spend a lot of my time doing demos and engaging with the public, people that I don't know, that are strangers. I'm shoving like my ice cream down their throat, right?
Yeah.
And I see them. They're looking at me, but they're not with me.
Right.
Like they've just got so much going on. I'm like, God, you know what? Be present. Like literally just focus on this conversation. I think more people need to do that.
I like that. Last one I have for you is the half a dozen haven't yet. So you gave me 3 have tos, and you can give me 3 haven't yet. So something that you haven't done yet in your life, almost like a bucket list, something you want to experience, but you have yet to experience.
Oh, I have a lot. So I have a lot of those because I've been very prioritizing and focusing. Definitely traveling more.
Okay.
I can't wait to, which is obviously my exit strategy. Get my helicopter license.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, that's my next. So my next thing. I wouldn't say it's a business thing at all.
Right.
It's my personal kind of, it's really cute because every time I'm having one of those moments where it's really real and frustrating and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of it, often my 6-year-old son will be like, Mama, look, the helicopter. And I'm like, right. Okay, back on, let's focus. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to, that's my goal, is to have my own helicopter, learn how to fly a helicopter. Also, really inspire, take people that are in my position that I'm in right now and give them the opportunity that I maybe didn't have, so right? Cool. And believe in them. And I look forward to being part of their priority and making them be the better that they can be in their company. Did I mention travel?
You did. You said it first.
Travel is, I think everyone needs to do more of it. They need to get out of, despite the fact that they need to be, as you said, community.
Yeah.
There's so much to see outside of our inner world and explore and learn so we can appreciate different communities more, tolerate communities more, and respect what's happening. Because my entire family comes from refugees and immigrants, that's a very topical and sensitive topic right now. And it's very emotional. And so I really would love to be in a position in the future where I could be more active and engaged with helping those people.
Very cool. I want to take a second before we do wrap up to celebrate you and say thank you so much. You mentioned you would like to inspire people in your same position at some point. And for me right now, you do that. It's people like you that are doing things like you're doing with Betterwith that inspire me to keep going. It is that naive disillusion or going left when everyone's going right that I truly appreciate. And watching you from afar and seeing what you're doing with your brand inspires me to do what I'm doing and to keep going. So I want to thank you on a personal note for maybe unknowingly leading and bushwhacking for so many people, be it male, female, whatever, as it comes to when it comes to being an entrepreneur in a very challenging, very busy space. So thank you so much for unknowingly inspiring myself and probably so many other people. And secondly, I want to thank you so much for your time. I say this on the show almost every episode. Time is the most valuable thing that we have. And you've been kind enough on this busy Friday of yours with 3 apples in your car to give me 1 hour and 2 minutes and 19, 20, 21, 22 seconds of your time. So I want to say thank you so much for that. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you beyond Betterwith, but also better understanding what your intention is with Betterwith. And I have to say, if you haven't tried it, good Lord, go vote with your dollars, buy 1, 2, or half a dozen of Lori's beautiful product. I personally recommend the strawberry because it's near and dear to my heart. But it is a fantastic product. And I think you have the opportunity with what's in the package and with what's in your heart and your head, you can do this and you will do this. And I look forward to watching you and your brand grow and supporting you any way I can and we can on the show. So thank you so much for doing what you do and for your time today.
Wow, thank you. Well, you should know that firstly, I take that as the highest compliment, but I get more out of this than you do, right? We're all busy,
Yeah.
right? That's why we prioritize. And being present and being with you for that hour and 3 or 4 minutes is one of the best hours of my day, right? Like I get from you that motivation as to why I'm doing this, that reassurance that what I'm doing is right. Mm-hmm. So we help each other. And I think that that's what's really so exciting when you're meeting with like-minded people, because you're creating this energy that just gives you more energy to get through the day.
Yeah, it's amazing. I like to look at situations, like this as a win-win-win, where I'm winning, hopefully you're winning, and there is a big win there for everyone else. So great place to wrap it up. You have to go do a demo, which I'm sure will be fun, exciting, exhilarating, challenging, all those things. I had an opportunity to watch you literally shove ice cream into a gentleman's face about an hour and a half ago. She is fearless. She is inspiring. Her name is Lori Joyce. My name is Brad Bodnerchuk. This is a Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Lori, again, thanks so much for your time.
This was awesome.
Until next week, guys, you know what to do. Be good and do good. That's it. We did it. Thank you.
No, this was awesome. Thank you.